Good afternoon, I'm Vashan Brown with the Midday News. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. 11 persons have been taken into custody in connection with Sunday afternoon's incident in Cave Valley, St. Anne, where members of a police team were attacked when they went to enforce the curfew order. Members of the police team were attacked by residents of Cascade District, some of whom resisted arrest. The individuals were held during operations on Tuesday and yesterday. Commanding officer of the St. Anne Police, Superintendent Carlos Russell, last night told the TVJ News that they have been charged.
11 persons were arrested and charged. 7 were arrested on Tuesday, the 20th of October, while 6 were arrested today in a pre-dawn operation, 4 of which were charged. These persons were charged for various breaches to include assault occasioning bodily harm, assaulting a constable, resisting arrest, obstructing a constable in the lawful execution of his duties, and breach of the Disaster Risk Management Act.
Superintendent Russell says the police will remain resolute in their efforts to maintain law and order in the parish.
The men and women of the St. Anne Division will continue to execute their jobs in a professional manner in enforcing the various laws of the land.
There has been growing tension in the area between residents and the police after a video went viral showing a man being beaten by a member of the JCF on Monday. Local Government Minister Desmond McKenzie says there will be tighter restrictions at infirmaries and nursing homes across the island. It was revealed on Wednesday that 43 residents and 3 staff members at the Golden Age home in Vineyard Town, St. Andrew, tested positive for the coronavirus.
There is no place of complacency now based on what is happening, and we are not going to treat Vineyard Town in isolation. We are going to look at the general population of the infirmaries across the country and seek to ensure that we minimize as best as possible any further outbreaks in any of the 15 such institutions that falls under the Ministry of Local Government and Rural Development.
Now, Mr. McKenzie was speaking at a virtual press conference yesterday. 5 more people have succumbed to the respiratory illness COVID-19 in Jamaica. The death toll from the virus now stands at 179. The new deaths comprise 2 men from St. James, 2 men from St. Mary, and a Portland resident. The ages of the 5 men range from 39 to 67 years. The Ministry of Health says 1 more death is under investigation. 155 new COVID-19 cases were recorded yesterday. The country's case count now stands at 8,600. Most of the cases were recorded in Kingston and St. Andrew, followed by St. James. Cases were recorded in all parishes except St. Thomas. The ages range from 6 months to 93 years. The health ministry says 164 patients remain hospitalized. 8 of them are critically ill. Another 19 patients are moderately ill. The July 2020 Labor Force Survey has revealed that most Jamaicans experienced a salary reduction due to the impact of COVID-19. Statin's Deputy Director Leisha Delatibadair highlighted that a majority of those who saw a reduction in their salary came from the tourist areas.
Approximately 57% of households indicated that they had experienced some reduction in their income between March and September 2020. We saw also where this was most prevalent in OUC, where about 63% of households indicated that they had a reduction in their income. And it should also be noted that this is where a lot of the tourist areas are. The lowest proportion regionally was in the Greater Kingston metropolitan area, where only 49% of households indicated that they experienced some reduction in their income.
The survey also shows that most Jamaicans found alternative ways to cope despite the income reduction.
The majority of households indicated who had taken some sort of strategy indicated that they had received some government support. What we also saw, that's about 40,000 households, was that there was another 27,000 households who had experienced a reduction in their income, who said that they had resorted to taking a loan from friends, neighbors, or relatives in order to cope with this reduced income. There was 14,000 who said that they started farming, keeping animals, fishing, etc., to produce food for the family, and about 11,000 households who said they sold some of their possessions.
A number of students from the University of the West Indies Mona campus will now be able to breathe a sigh of relief following the donation of $2.5 million to the institution yesterday by Prime Minister and leader of the Jamaica Labour Party, Andrew Holness. Prince Moore reports.
Over 100 students faced the possibility of being deregistered, having owed money on their tuition for the semester at the University of the West Indies Mona. This has been a recurring challenge for many students seeking higher education. But the problem has been made worse with the coronavirus. The pandemic has seen a number of persons losing jobs or having their salaries reduced as businesses try to combat the effects of the virus. In addition to tuition fees, students are also faced with another expense, an internet bill to enable them to access lectures online. It's why the Positive Jamaica Foundation and the Jamaica Labour Party Education Fund on Wednesday provided the university with $2.5 million to aid some students in paying their tuition. Prime Minister Andrew Holness says serious dialogue is now needed on how tertiary education will be financed going forward.
I have put in place a tertiary, not tertiary, but an education transformation commission that will take a look, a preliminary look at least, on the tertiary situation. We may have to go into deep analysis to figure out, for the next 50 years, how are we going to ensure that our growing population gets access to tertiary education, which is now becoming the standard.
Mr. Holness called on other Jamaicans to assist more students fulfill their potential. According to the university, an additional $10.5 million is needed to aid in all students finishing their course of study. In the political debates in August, the JLP's Floyd Green had promised that if his party was elected, they would be seeking to further reduce interest rates on student loans. This, he says, would widen the pool for students to get a higher education without increased financial burden. Mr. Holness wants the issue of internet connectivity addressed.
This is something that we will have to now figure out. How do we assist these students? Last year we gave assistance because, again, there was an article in the paper which pointed out that there are many students who, whilst on campus, they are registered, they are doing well, but they simply could not afford the day-to-day living. And then there was always the threat of deregistration.
Earlier this month, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Jasper Gabriel, called for telecoms providers to be held accountable for the lack of service being offered, especially in rural communities. He says all that has been happening is promises from the two major service providers, Flow and Digicel.
And it's now time for a break on the Midday News, but please stay with us. More stories when we return. Welcome back. Continuing the news now. Clarendon residents are expected to cash in big for used plastic bottles. As you'll hear in this report from DWAYNE Anderson, this is part of a new recycling initiative which is intended to help solve flooding in the parish.
This area of land may look like your typical bushed-up common, but it represents a fix for many of Clarendon's problems, especially flooding. The town of Maypen has become more flood-prone in recent years, and a big part of the problem is improper disposal of bottles.
Where we are today is at a location sited in the Dembe Agricultural Showground. I must tell you that for the past 3 years, we have been in discussions with the Recycling Partners of Jamaica Limited in respect of the plastic bottles that have been giving us problems all over the parish of Clarendon. And so we're finally at the stage now where Recycling Partners would like to partner with us at the Municipal Corporation to have a location where they can set up a depot for the plastic bottles in the parish.
In fact, this was the scene along one of Maypen's major roadways minutes after that interview. a growing pile of garbage hugging a Jamaica Public Service light pole. And since the problems are being caused by residents, they will have to help fix it. The authorities say they're adding some incentives to encourage residents to make the parish cleaner.
That will be given to a payment, at least, that will be given to whoever wants to get involved in this recycling thing. So you get hold of the plastic bottles, arrest them, bag them, take them here, a certain amount, and you will be paid for doing so, which is something a very good system that I think should work. You know, we have always had problems with the drains being clogged up by plastic bottles and so on.
The mayor of Maypen, in the meantime, said a parish-wide drain cleaning program has started to help alleviate flooding. In addition, the number of garbage and waste storage zones in Maypen have increased thanks to a partnership between the municipal corporation and Jamalco. DWAYNE Anderson, TVJ News.
Residents of Richmond and St. Mary will now have access to the bridge along the Boxing Plant Main Road. As you'll hear in this report, the Minister with responsibility for works, EVERALD Warmington, says the bridge will be opened to facilitate single-lane traffic.
About 2 weeks ago, residents of Richmond and St. Mary were pleading for assistance to fix the bridge along the Boxing Plant Main Road. They complained that the bridge, which was closed 6 months ago, was affecting their livelihoods as it forced traffic to be redirected, increasing transportation fares. And on Wednesday, their cries were heard. Communications Manager at the National Works Agency, NWA, Stephen Shaw, says work has already started and is being done in 2 phases.
The phase involved us ensuring that what is there did not fail beyond where it had already. We have managed to treat with that particular situation. So right now, the focus is on getting the work done where persons would have seen a hole developing in the deck or a section of the deck.
The second phase of a project includes rectifying a deck that has formed in a section of the bridge. Mr. Shaw says the agency is still seeking funds to address that issue. But in the meantime, Minister with responsibility for works, EVERALD Warmington, has asked the NWA to open the bridge to facilitate single-lane traffic to give access to smaller vehicles and pedestrians only.
Having looked at what is there, I don't believe that we should close off this bridge entirely. We can make it accessible to a single lane for cars and those smaller vehicles. But you construct a barrier to prevent trucks with those heavy weights from coming through here.
It will benefit everybody, because right now it's training to people, because we have to pay like $400. Usually we used to pay $100 from Highgate to Richmond. Now we have to pay like $400. You understand? So it will good.
OSHANE Masters, TVJ News.
The donation of 13 laptops is expected to make some improvement in the online learning challenges faced by students at the Robert Lightburn High School in St. Thomas. Past students who graduated in 1996 made the presentation on Wednesday, which the principal says will help much more than 13 students who continue to struggle to do their online classes without any electronic device or internet access.
Well, out of the set of computers that I have received, I have already donated one to a community group where students are benefiting right as we speak. They are using it to gain access to the classroom, the Google Classroom, and all reports have so far indicated that it's a success. We intend to replicate this in other areas using some of these very same computers.
News overseas now. A U.S. judge has dropped the third-degree murder charge against former officer Derek Chauvin in George Floyd's death. However, the second-degree murder charge remains. Chauvin, who was released on $1 million bond earlier this month, was seen in videos of the incident kneeling on Floyd's neck for almost 8 minutes, while the black man told Chauvin and 3 other officers that he couldn't breathe. Time now for sports. Medical practitioner Dr. Akshay Mansingh says the length and or methods of training sessions may have to be changed for the Reggae Boys leading into the busy 2021, which comprises the Gold Cup and World Cup qualifying. Next summer, the Reggae Boys could play as many as 10 games in the space of 40 days, which includes a lot of traveling with a short recovery period. Chiropractic neurologist Dr. Neil Gardner highlighted recently with TVJ Sports the issues the team may face as it relates to travel. Now, Dr. Mansingh says training sessions may have to be tweaked to get the best out of the team ahead of the busy assignments.
Like this. And if you're going to put them in conditions like economy class, which is fine, if that's what you can afford, that's what you can afford, then you might have to just see how you can get more time for them to recover. And that's where the trick is, because the schedule is so packed that the practicality of it might not be that easy. So we have to be cognizant of it, and what you may have to do is alter some of the training schedules, give them a longer break, make them train less when they come back, knowing that they're in active service in Europe, etc. But I think the important thing is to recognize it as a problem and then work around it.
The Reggae Boys will play 4 World Cup qualifiers in June 2021, and then they will head to the 2021 CONCACAF Gold Cup in July and play up to 6 games if they advance to the final. 2021 will also see the Reggae Boys play 6 more World Cup qualifiers after the Gold Cup. And that's the Midday News. I'm Vashon Brown. Join us at 7 for Primetime News Package. On behalf of the news, sports and production teams, have a wonderful afternoon.